Welcome to Windows on the World. Got a great show for you tonight. We're going back into the area of catastrophism, and I've got a lot to get through here. Let's now get into The Mysterious Comet, a book published by Beaumont in 1932. We are going to give you the full background of where to look and our recent articles, so pay attention and stay tuned. First though, let's have an overview. The cosmic serpent, shaped like the incoming comet with its tail wreaking destruction to planet Earth, has stayed in the records and history of the planet for thousands of years. Appeasing the sky gods was important after many catastrophes that have smashed apart Pangaea, the Earth's original unbroken landmass. We've reported on the last catastrophe in Britain Shattered Isles. That's the last catastrophe between 3,000 and 3,500 years ago. And of course, in our recent show, The Order of Knowledge, and the last one, Cataclysm of the Mind. And that article, which I'm going to refer to, The Lost Order of Knowledge, go to the article and the links on the homepage, scroll down to the show archive, and the article is called The Lost Order of Knowledge, and it contains the shows mentioned in this show and others, and the documentary The Last Druid, which we referred to, plus links to Britain Shattered Isles. That'll give you a really good overview if you are interested in this material, and I do hope you are, because you are the people who need to absorb this, because the listeners to this show give me incredible inspiration and they feed back so much information, which I'm really grateful for. Let's get on to catastrophist author Beaumont, who spent many years investigating the bigger aspects of real climate change. This is the foreword to Mysterious Comet, published in 1932. Beaumont joins up the normally fragmented disciplines of history, astronomy, geology, geography, and meteorology to give a complete picture of the systems within systems through which our planet operates in the wider solar system and indeed the cosmos, showing that the effects of space weather are very real and that we need to think beyond the clouds, not only to understand everyday conditions, but also to predict major catastrophes. The fake climate science of the present, of course, has taken the public away from any reality as far as Earth and its past catastrophes are concerned. It is stated by the systems of financial power, of course, that there is a climate crisis. This reversion of the truth is why this civilization is being put into intentional decline. Well, Beaumont clearly illustrates the seemingly overlooked connection between volcanoes and the passage or impact of heavenly bodies, giving rise to various atmospheric phenomena. Eruptions, earthquakes, tidal waves and floods, showing that the law of attraction is indeed operational on all levels. I'm not talking about the New Age law of attraction, which means that you manifest your own little world of abundance, whilst ignoring, of course, the bigger picture. The comets that follow a certain path are what we're talking about here. Comets usually follow this path from north-northeast and south-southwest, and from the north they follow the locations of volcanoes. This is what meteorologist Beaumont actually discovered. Well, let's first look at the conventional view of what are called impact events. Okay, an impact event is a collision between astronomical objects causing measurable effects. Impact events have physical consequences and have been found to regularly occur in planetary systems, though the most frequent involve asteroids, comets, or meteoroids, and it says here, have minimal effect. Well, the comets we're talking about are much bigger than that. When large objects impact terrestrial planets such as the Earth, there can be significant physical and biospheric consequences, though atmospheres mitigate many surface impacts through atmospheric entry, of course, because when they are off course, that is when they are dangerous, and that's when they hone in to these lines of volcanoes on planet Earth, when they break through the atmosphere. Impact craters and structures are dominant landforms on many of the solar system's solid objects and present the strongest empirical evidence for their frequency and scale. Impact events appear to have played a significant role in the evolution of the solar system since its formation. So that's according to the conventional theories that major impacts have significantly shaped Earth's history and have been implicated in the formation of the Earth-Moon system. They also say impact events appear to have played a significant role in the evolutionary history of life. Impacts may have helped deliver the building blocks of life. The panspermia theory, of course, relies on this premise, and it all ties in to Darwinism and the evolution theory. The panspermia hypothesis is a philosophical thought that life migrates naturally through space, and it states that the seeds of life exist all over the universe and it can be propagated through space from one location to another. Impacts have been suggested as the origin of water on Earth. This theory has been used, of course, to push evolution. These sort of comments have been used to explain how life evolved on Earth. They are as likely as life starting when lightning struck a warm pond. Well, the way life started from the beginning was with tiny little things called prokaryotes and eukaryotes as the building blocks of life, and oxygen came from the mixing of these two. Oxygen cannot be explained by mere chance. It has more to do with intelligent terraforming of the planet over billions of years and preparing it for habitation in what is known as the Goldilocks zone. That's what Earth is known as because it's in a perfect position to support life. This relatively stable planet we live on, of course, has had many cataclysms which have wiped out previous knowledge, and we've covered that in the last couple of shows. Throughout recorded history, hundreds of Earth impacts and exploding bodies have been reported, with some occurrences causing deaths, injury, property damage, or other significant localized consequences. These are the smaller events that have happened within our lifetime, of course. They are underestimating the catastrophes of the past, which have shaped the long and turbulent history of Earth. Some comparatively minor recent events include, let's get into these, one of the best known recorded events in modern times, the Tunguska event, which occurred in Siberia, Russia in 1908. And here's what scientists think happened. This again is from the search engine for hiding all knowledge, Google. The explosion was likely caused by the collision of an asteroid or a comet with atoms and molecules of Earth's atmosphere. Objects of a suitable size for this type of explosion collide with Earth every few hundred years on average. Now, the 2013 Chelyabinsk meteor event is the only known such incident in modern times to result in numerous injuries. 1,500 people were injured, many by being too close to windows. They could see this incoming meteor. They were watching it descending. The object was about 20 meters long, and this meteor is the largest recorded object to have encountered the Earth since the Tunguska event. Now, the comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, this impact provided the first direct observation of an extraterrestrial collision of solar system objects when the comet broke apart and collided with Jupiter in July 1994. An extrasolar impact was observed in 2013 when a massive terrestrial planet impact was detected around the star ID8 in the star cluster NGC 2547, if you're interested, by NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope, and it was confirmed by ground observations. Now, impact events have been a plot and background element in science fiction, which is why these events have become more fantasy than the reality that history shows are very, very real. So in other words, the trivialization of the Earth's history and the impacts of the past have been trivialized by the World Bank, UN, IPCC conglomerate, which pushes this climate change narrative to every country in the world and is now the subject of these entitled, narcissistic and navel-gazing so-called science fiction writers. In April 2018, the B612 Foundation, headed by ex-space station astronaut Ed Lu. Now, this is, of course, not outer space. This is lower Earth orbit. He said, "It's 100% certain we'll be hit by a devastating asteroid, but we're not 100% certain when." Oh, you're really on the ball there, and thanks for being so accurate. So we'll get him back into the work of Cummins-Beaumont very soon. But also, in 2018, as a side issue, physicist Stephen Hawking considered in his final book, Brief Answers to the Big Questions, that an asteroid collision was the biggest threat to the planet. No kidding. How did he actually come to that conclusion? In June 2018, the US National Science and Technology Council warned that America is unprepared for an asteroid impact event and has developed and released the National Near-Earth Object Preparedness Strategy Action Plan to better prepare. Well, the preparation, of course, will only work if they can destroy it before it hits the Earth, and they've got no chance of doing that, according to NASA, unless they can track it from a very long way away, which is, of course, possible. According to expert testimony in the United States Congress in 2013, NASA would require at least 5 years of preparation before a mission to intercept an asteroid could be launched. On 26th of September 2022, the double asteroid redirection test demonstrated the deflection of an asteroid. It was the first such experiment to be carried out by mankind and was considered, by them of course, to be highly successful. The orbital period of the target body was changed by 32 minutes. The criterion for success was a change of more than 73 seconds. I think we'll have to take all that with a pinch of salt. And what we can do now is have a very short break before we come back to Mysterious Comet by Cummins-Beaumont. That was Bartholomew's Fair from the soundtrack of The Heretics of London, The Smithfield Martyrs, which you can purchase on the homepage at windowsontheworld.net. A fascinating historical documentary, and we're going to be working on another one soon called Shattered Isles. So if you would like to support us, please do on Patreon, because this film will be going out to everybody who supports the show. And remember, there will be screenings of The Heretics of London later this year. In fact, not much later this year. And there'll be more announcements about that and other events over the coming weeks. But please support the show, even if you can sponsor us for £5 a month. It makes a great deal of difference and helps me to keep the bills paid, because running this actually costs quite a lot of money. And we're going to get back now to Cummins-Beaumont and the opening pages of The Mysterious Comet, published in 1932. Weather abnormalities in their inception reveal conditions which are quite foreign to any local origin and must be sought elsewhere. Those who preserve records of periods of acute atmospheric disturbance are aware that the weather, when it remains fine and tranquil over a certain time, coincides with an absence of any severe earthquake or volcanic eruption. So what we're seeing at the present, as an aside, is a very stable period with the occasional mild disturbance, which is the occasional eruption of a volcano or other fairly dramatic localized event. So we're not talking about huge cataclysms here. Those who preserve records of periods of acute atmospheric disturbance are aware that the weather, when it remains fine and tranquil over a certain time, coincides with an absence of any severe earthquake or volcanic eruption, and alternatively, when a severe earthquake is reported, say in the Mediterranean area or in a direction of Central America, there is a repercussion shortly after or simultaneously, producing storms, perhaps snow and great cold, and atmospheric disturbances generally over a big region to the north of the trouble. And what he's referring to here, of course, are cataclysms that happen in the northern hemisphere, because the comets go north-northeast to south-southwest. They seem, from his research, to follow this trajectory. Well, the explanation, as stated, is that an earthquake or eruption or tornado or tidal wave are set in motion by a meteoric body from outer space, this body either striking the Earth and causing a catastrophic event, great or small according to circumstances, or it may pass on just shedding only some of its gases. It is strange that as yet official meteorologists seem to be quite indifferent to these facts, or to evince the slightest inclination to associate meteors with the very phenomena I shall prove they set up. The fact that a meteor, even of comparatively small size, say even a few tons, approaches the Earth at a stupendous rate of speed, generates electricity on a vast scale, and is accompanied by gases that at once condense as they strike the air, it's evidently regarded as a negligible matter by these authorities, although I do not know why. Well, nothing's changed there, has it? Nothing's changed at all, because we have this world of uniformitarianism where a climate crisis is something that doesn't even exist. Let's carry on. A word about the appearance of a meteor. These bodies shoot through our atmosphere at a rapid speed that the human eye cannot fix them by daylight except as a thin cloud, or by night except as a flash of light. But when a meteor strikes the earth or sea, it plunges rapidly down like a gigantic flexible shell or serpentine form. It actually says torpentine form, but he uses serpent quite a lot, so forgive me for that. If it should unfortunately strike a ship at sea, she will never again be heard of, or if it should strike a village or town, such as a centre of civilization, it will be usually buried deep or be torn to tatters. If it be drawn into a volcano by the magnetic attraction offered by these strange mountains, the mountain will burst all unexpectedly into violent paroxysmal eruption, and all the evidence points to the institution of a new crater or else a long burning fissure down the mountain's flank. Well, if you look at the Tunguska incident and look at the size of the impact crater, it's pretty large, but we're talking here about something much bigger. Sometimes a meteor, as will be seen, is thrown down as a new and fiercely burning volcanic mountain, sometimes as a volcanic island if it strikes the sea and is big enough to exceed the ocean depths, and sometimes when it is not of sufficient size to appear above the tumultuous sea, we only hear of tremendous hurricanes. Of course, there was a bright moon here. He's going on to a little aside here, which I'll leave out because this was about Greenwich Observatory. But to get back to the main story, he says the official of Greenwich Observatory would not regard the presence of a meteor passing in the direction of the almost simultaneous Miami hurricane as having any connection with it, because these scientists are taught that meteors are only illuminated dust of cosmic origin and quite harmless. I note for the present that this meteor taking the same track, allowing for rapidity of movement, and the Miami hurricane flitted across the vision of the Whitstable observer at 8:48 p.m. the same day in Florida. Thus, if the meteor struck the ocean at some spot to the northeast of Florida and set up the hurricane and tidal wave, it must have been some 8 hours and a few minutes before the result was felt at Miami at midnight. So that's a little bit of an aside there. And I'm breaking this up a bit to make it a bit more focused. Meteors are said to travel at the rate of about 20 miles per second, but like much astronomical science, these calculations are not proven. They travel at all events with great rapidity, and it is a fair assumption that, as the Whitstable observers saw from the north-northwest until it descended low on the western sky. Now we're talking here about this Miami disaster of September 2026, when Miami and the coast of Florida were struck by a tremendous hurricane about midnight of September 17th to the 18th, coming by the Bahamas. Velocity reported as from 100 to 120 miles per hour. So he's talking about this event particularly. And so he's using this to outline the bigger picture of meteors. So, was the meteor seen at Whitstable, Kent, the origin of the Miami disaster? This is what he's doing. He's trying to join the dots up. It cannot be proved directly, but there is a great accumulation of contributory evidence to this effect, for the instance in question is only one of hundreds of which data is available. And then he goes on to say, he wrote immediately to the Daily Mail to draw attention to these significant features and the connections here, and hoped to draw one or two astronomers into it. And he says they are very shy gentry and safeguard their reputations. In other words, they go with the scientific consensus. Wow. It's got even worse, hasn't it? Especially in the present. They refused, he says, to be drawn into discussion. Nearly all meteors approach the Earth from the direction of the pole of the ecliptic, and for reasons to be explained later, come towards us from the sun. All storms and hurricanes from the northeast owe their inception to meteoric influence, and hence the very name hurricane, used in Norway, Spain, and known to the earliest inhabitants of America, signifying, here we go, serpent storm. For the gods of destruction were deemed to smite in the form of a great flying serpent. Now this symbology has gone everywhere, and this really could be the most practical reason why it exists. Serpent storm, the gods of destruction. The flying serpent represented on the pylons of Egyptian temples and on the raised pyramids of Central America. With the Earth's diurnal movement, a meteor from the northeast will take a geographical direction of southwest. A meteor itself may admittedly be large or small. Some astronomers declare that they are rarely larger than a cricket ball. On the other hand, we have definite proof of great meteors like Coon Butte, Arizona, one of enormous size, which, had it fallen in London, would have blotted it out and its entire population in about 1 second. So when these things actually hit the Earth and they go into the middle of nowhere, their impact is of course minimalised, and no one really hears about it, unless of course they research it. He carries on, a meteor may be defined as a fraction of a comet, which itself is an extinguished planet minus orbit drawn in by the attraction of a sun whose fires it replenishes. A meteor is therefore a solid body, and if the hurricane which struck the Bahamas and Miami was the result of the meteor seen from Whitstable, it evidently displaced a considerable body of water to be felt nearly 1,000 miles distant as a seismic wave, capable of lifting a freighter into a hotel garden. A meteor also is accompanied by gases and, of course, electricity. These gases condense in our terrestrial atmosphere. Hydrogen and oxygen turn into water. Oxygen is felt on such occasions by extreme cold. Now let me give the sequel to the meteor and Miami insofar as it affected the British Isles. He's given an outline of an example here. For some days prior to the sighting of the meteor, the British Isles had been bathed in sunshine. Friday and Saturday, September 17th and 18th, a heat wave was very oppressive. Of Sunday, the Evening Standard on Monday remarked that it was the hottest day for 3 years. Well, it'd be the hottest day of all time now if they said it, wouldn't it? And Londoners slept fitfully or not at all. That was in the southeast. In the northwest, however, it was another matter. Sunday morning, September 20th, early violent thunderstorms broke out suddenly over most of Scotland, especially along the west coast and the north and northwest of England. The storms moving from northwest towards southeast. At Berwick-on-Tweed on the border, it was described as the worst within living memory. At Kirkby Stephen, water rushing down from the Pennines completely flooded the railway line. They would be making a very big deal about this now, wouldn't it? This would be absolute proof, if anyone needed, of the climate crisis. He says in Shropshire, cows were killed in a field because the electricity magnetised barbed wire. This would have been an absolute cataclysm if reported. Imagine what the Guardian would have made of this. This would have been the end of the world, wouldn't it? In North Wales, a farm was burnt down and houses and trees were damaged by lightning. At Carlisle, the rain was measured at 2¼ inches or 300 tonnes per acre. No such fall within the space of 8 hours has ever been recorded at Carlisle. I wonder if this is in the Meteorological Office records. I don't think so. It probably is, but they won't tell you. The Lake District of Cumberland was lit up for an hour by vivid forked lightning and great damage resulted. Telegraphic and telephonic communication broke down throughout the north. The storm lasted continuously from 1 a.m. until 7 a.m. Sunday morning. That's from the Morning Post, September the 21st, 1926. This violent storm exhausted itself before it reached the south. On the other hand, the wind changed from east-southeast to northwest, and the high temperatures of the preceding days came down with a run on the Monday. At 9 a.m, Kew Observatory showed only 2 degrees cooler, at noon 6 degrees at 2 p.m. The difference was 12 degrees, and at 3 p.m, 16 degrees from 85 to 69. Thus, about 28 hours after the Whitstable observer's sight of the meteor, to his north-northwest, a tremendous storm struck the north and northwest coasts, and new atmospherics were plunged into an area where previously an anticyclone had reigned. Breezes from Greenland are displacing those from the Sahara, said the Evening Standard on Monday the 21st. How and why did these new atmospherics suddenly strike the north of the British Isles? The explanation I offer, says Beaumont, is that the meteor, which indirectly caused the Miami disaster, came, as stated, from the north ecliptic pole. If it came from the northeast and fell in or near the Sargasso Sea, it approached the Earth obliquely, and when high up in the north, its gases were mainly captured from the meteor itself, condensed, and with accumulated electricity, took a direction from Greenland towards the British Isles south. And this event, like thousands of others, indicates a close cohesion between meteors and weather conditions, introducing into our fresh atmospherics, without which in course of time all nature would languish and die. We know well enough that the air we breathe is composed of various gases, mainly oxygen and nitrogen, and that if living entities are removed from their rightful elements, they either die outright or gradually feel the effects and languish until they expire. The air we breathe requires frequent renovation, or else, like all else, it becomes used up and fetid. How does the air we breathe become renewed except through influences beyond the earth? No one who gives the matter a moment's thought can believe that in the past ages, perhaps millions of years since life first evolved, the same atmosphere has remained a static force without renewable. So, those are the first few pages that Beaumont writes in his book Mysterious Comet, published in 1932. And the reason I've read all that out and commented on it is because it's going to form the basis of what we're going to be talking about. So it's an introduction to this world of meteorology and comets. So over the next few weeks, I'll be interspersing the shows with more of this information. I'm going to be doing a lot of research into it, and it's a new field of study for Windows on the World. We have actually done stuff on Comets Beaumont, so do look at that article. Do look at the article on the homepage, which is in the Shows Archive. If you scroll down, it's not in the Sunday Shows Archive, it's on the front page. Scroll down to something that says Show Archive. It's the first one in there, The Order of Knowledge. It'll give you the whole backstory and indeed the trailer for the film Shattered Isles, which we produced several years ago. And I was putting that one into the background when I made The Heretics of London, which kind of took over from it. But I didn't know enough about the works of Beaumont, and I want to explore more of it because, as we have been reporting, the true source of the original Christianity and the history of the world has been changed if these theories are indeed true. And when we look at the cover story, the theories do indeed add up. And that goes into a lot of the stuff that we've been covering, including the force they fear and the shows which are in the archive since then. And yes, do check out the article. And also, as an aside, do check out the latest upload on our live stream. I did a great show with Gonzalo Carrera and Rob Warrington for their new song, which is out on the 12th of July, with 3 other songs as an EP. It's called Spiritual Wars, and I made the video for that when I was in London. And take a look at it. It's by This Machine Kills Archons, and it's called Spiritual Wars. So check that out on YouTube and maybe download it and support real grassroots, not fake grassroots, real grassroots performers. And support the show if you can, because I'm never going to stop putting this information out, and it's getting to a fascinating area. We've covered so much over the years. The archive is massive and it speaks for itself. So do have a look. Subscribe to us on Odyssey and Spreaker, and you can do that on the homepage at Windows on the World. If you want to share anything with us, it's info@windowsontheworld.net, and we have a Discord channel where you can post information. So if you have anything you want to send in, do please send it in. And we're going to be covering much more on this because it's so relevant to what's going on at the moment. In other words, the fake cataclysm is being used to cover up the fact that we are in a stable interglacial period. And there are very simple explanations as to why there is slight warming going on in the Earth, but it's just a normal process. Not according to the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and the World Bank. This is a new financial system on the back of the biggest lie in human history, and we're trying to get to the real story. So, until the next show, thanks for listening. Hope you found that useful, and we'll be exploring a lot more on this in the weeks to come.